Hello, and welcome to Wyverns and Weirdos, a D&D podcast set in the World of Fierlor. I am your Dungeon Master, Darby. Joining me as always are Eddie, playing Tibble, Mitch, playing Neros, Jake, playing the Fishman, Joe, playing Alton, Laura, playing Rue and Janus, Emily, playing Cerise, and Zoe, playing Loren. Let's jump into it. So, where we last left off, the crews of the Polaris and the Red Phoenix resolved their combat with the Sin Seekers. It was a tense stalemate, with one member of the Sin Seekers plummeted deep down into the ocean, and Tibble, the captain, downed in combat, his ribcage crushed by Rort, the chain brute ogre, as the Sin Seekers teleported off, leaving, through some happenstance, Janus behind. So, because we've not yet resolved Tibble's status, we are staying in initiative, sort of. It's going to be loose because it conveniently lines up that Tibble is right at the end of the initiative. So everyone basically has an opportunity to do something that they would be able to do on a turn. I will remind you all that Alton did call for anyone in the crew with healing capabilities to rush up to the deck. So that will likely be here in a round or two. For now, is there any immediate action that people are taking?
Cerise is gonna come on down from the crow's nest where she's been hiding and having a grand old time watching everybody else get obliterated. I'm not sure how high up that is, so that probably takes all her movement to get down.
I mean, yeah, Alton's gonna rush over to Tibble. So will Rue.
Your movement is enough to get you there. Alton, you notice immediately, as the sound suggested, your probably worst fear in this scenario is confirmed in that Tibble's chest is absolutely crushed.
Yeah, he's gonna drop to his knees beside him and then kind of just like assess and shit. Magic, we need healing.
Yeah,
magic.
Yeah, roll me a medicine check.
Of course, I'm here. And Rue will in tandem try to sort of inspect, and Alton will see Rue's mask is still firmly in place, but there's a lot of that bright energy is peeking up from behind like the seams of the mask as they first try to cast Cure Wounds, I guess.
Roll.
Any D20 roll that's being made in any of this.
Alton's medicine check would be a D20.
Neros is going to use silvery barbs and is just going to try and pull any amount of luck from the surroundings and push it into Alton. Unfortunately, that means he's going to try and pull some of the delicate handholds of Cerise as she's climbing down the ladder and pump the luck into Alton.
What does this do?
You get advantage on your medicine check.
Rue, how much healing, assuming it works, does your Cure Wounds do while Alton is rolling that medicine check?
9 points.
Alton?
And then even if that doesn't work, they're already preparing to transfer the last of their lay on hands as well. More that magical energy, and I will roll again.
Alton?
That was a
Oh, sorry.
20.
I rolled a 3, Darby.
Oh. So roll me a percentile. Alton, what was your...
It was a nat 20, so that's a 26.
20.
So simultaneously for whatever is happening with Alton, a side effect happens.
Rue, you regain 17 hit points.
So, as this flow of energy comes from Rue and reflects back at them, almost tripled, and Alton feels over the mess that is his captain. I guess he would see your captain, who's usually so full of life and so full of movement. His face is just so quiet. But in spite of that, you have seen horrors before. You've worked in dark places. You've known injuries like this before. And as you feel over trying to ignore the personal connection, you start to feel a slight flutter of movement. And when you lay your head down to listen to the chest to try and hear for breathing, you hear a sound and you know your captain is alive.
Okay, he's still alive. Rue, we need that healing. We need magic. That's all that can fix this.
It bounced back. I'm not sure why. I'll try again.
You know some healing magic went into Tibble, but it also seemed to somehow, in this weird moment, bounce back and the energy seemed to amplify.
Ooh.
As healing magic, but
I suppose, Rue, if you're sort of witnessing and you see Alton after you reel back from that shock of your own energy coming back at you, but in a positive way, you also, with your expertise and understanding, would know that your healing did work. Tibble should be conscious, but I think both of you looking at him, you think that at the moment, it's best that he isn't.
Getting back to Alton's natural 20 on medicine. So you know physical medicine. You have a passing knowledge on magical medicine. Not the greatest knowledge, but still enough to know in moments like this when it's needed. You're aware that a wound of this severity probably wouldn't have been survivable without magical healing. But even with that magical intervention, the injury itself, the physical injury, was so severe that even with magical healing, it was always going to linger. The only things that are going to heal his ribcage, basically, are time or incredibly powerful magical healing. We're talking about, at the very least, a heal spell, which is probably beyond the capabilities of any magical healer you've met.
I think he'll just quietly sit with this knowledge for a moment and just turn to Rue and say, I think magic can't heal every injury. This is very severe. Perhaps we can keep him alive, but this is a lot of damage.
It doesn't look good, that's for certain. I am concerned. Do you think the magic is exacerbating it? He would be in more pain, if so.
I don't know, well, keeping him alive is certainly causing the pain.
I don't know what to do.
I think you stay with him. I can find Janus. He's second in command. And we do need to heal everyone.
Can Fishman hear this conversation?
I would say yes.
He might call out if he can, and he'll say, there is one person, and one person alone, that should decide this. He'll then turn around to Janus, and he will put his hand on his shoulder and say, you were always a part of the Polaris, so you are free to roam. However, in this case, I believe you should stay here, unless you can help, and if so, tread lightly. And then he will leave and run downstairs wherever he believes that Kara will be. And if he does see Kara, he's going to, in sign, say, go see him and quick.
Kara, she freezes for a moment, seeing the look on the fishman's face.
It's quite dead. Not sad, just dead.
Seeing that, she bolts up to the deck.
Fishman will probably be following, and I'm not sure how possible it would be, but he would suggest through body language to just say, let them, don't stop them.
Rue is hunched over Tibble as Alton suggested. They've taken their hat off. They turn their long beaky head, expressionless as always, as Kara arrives on deck.
I think Alton will be walking across deck on his way to Neris, and he'd try to make eye contact with Kara and look a little sullen and just be like, it's not looking good.
As Kara gets to the deck, if no one stops her and no one shields her view, at first she freezes, and it's like she can't really take in exactly what she's seeing. And what you hear is an awful sound of complete horror from what you can only recognize as vocal cords that have clearly gone through unimaginable trauma. And I think you would notice that making this sound is causing her pain. And not emotional pain, physical pain. And I think in this moment, as you see her look upon her husband and cry out in horror, you realize that it's not only that Kara doesn't speak, it's that she physically can't. And she rushes forward, and her face already is just sopping wet, and she's inconsolable. These heavy sobs are just racked from her, and you see her put her paws either side of her husband's face, and she's whispering. It's in a language I don't think any of you would know, but you hear her whispering over and over, and she crouches there beside her husband, holding his face. What's everyone else doing?
How is Janus faring in this moment?
Janus is hearing all of this. He's not particularly seeing, he's very still. He's still holding the glaive, but with no intent. He's almost still sort of shell-shocked at what's happening, like he's registering things at a slower pace to everyone else currently. Obviously, the lightning storm has died down, but the wind is still whipping around everywhere, I imagine, because of other circumstances. But yeah, he is aware, but unseeing. The second that the Sin Seekers left and their purpose was fulfilled, his wings are just touching the ground. Not drooping, but cowed, I suppose.
Janus, the estate.
Yes. Should I have?
Only you can make that decision for yourself.
Do I deserve it?
Do any of us?
He does look at Naras. You're very right, friend. And he just shares a look with him. With the background of this heart-rending wailing through Kara's anguish, I suppose. But he does look eyes with Naras.
Let's paint a little picture here. In the foreground, we have a very tragic scene happening of Kara painfully, emotionally and physically sobbing over her near-dead husband, who needs desperate attention from like an incredibly high-level healer, surrounded by healers who are trying their best at the front. In the midground, we have Janus and Neris doing all that and having this moment of Janus returning to the ship that he felt abandoned him. Somewhere in between those two, we have Cerise, full health, vibing. And way in the back, under the closed portal where a Sin Seeker met his fate, covered in blood, both hers and not, Loren is crouched on the ground, desperately trying as quietly as she can to regain control of her own body. As these spines along her back and arms warp and almost try to grow into wings and then retract, and her teeth grow and shrink, and her nails claw and dig holes into the wood of the ship, and she is trying so hard to be silent so that no one looks at her and sees what she is.
Whilst this is happening, Cerise sees Kara and sees and hears the reaction, and she's rooted in place for a moment, just staring. And then she snaps out of it and goes to Loren, and as she walks over to Loren, she takes her coat off and gently drapes it over Loren's shoulders and stands in front of her to shield her from anybody's view, and just crouches down and just says, "Take your time."
100 voices in harmony, quiet as a lullaby. Captain, I'm failing.
No, you're not.
Command her back. She listens to you.
It's time for that side to go back to sleep.
And with more effort, enough effort that I am willing to take a point of exhaustion, the spines recede, and the claws become nails, and Loren collapses to her hands and knees, and she looks up at Cerise, and her eyes are blue, and she is crying, and she just nods, and she hides in that coat for as long as she is allowed to.
Cerise just nods and does reach out and cups the side of Loren's face and wipes a couple of the tears away.
More flow. And she just stays there, waiting, unsure for what.
Cerise stays with her, silent.
So, given what's going on, I don't think Cerise and Loren would be particularly paying attention to who else is coming up onto deck. But if you did, a tall, beautiful figure wafts her way onto the deck. The rest of you know her as the resident healer, Sia. And through the chaos, a serene look on her face. And as she walks over to where Tibble is laying, she stands next to you first, Rue, and when you look up to her, she kind of reaches a hand down and just gently strokes your face. And then she turns to Kara and she leans down and she whispers something gently. "It is okay, sweet one. Your husband dreamed. He will sleep, and he will heal." And she gently pries Kara off of Tibble. And Alton, as you're watching, you see her reach down with a hand and just press gently on his forehead. And you see Tibble's breathing relax slightly. It's still wheezing. His chest still looks the same, but you think he might be in less pain. Sia reaches into one of her sleeves and brings forth like a vial with this shimmering white liquid, and she gently holds back Kara's head and urges her to drink. Kara drinks gently and you see her settle, and you think it might be a potion of calm emotions. And like when Tibble's breathing slowed, you hear Kara's breathing slow, quietly, and she no longer makes noise.
You know what's happening? What can I do? How can I assist? We haven't had much chance to speak. I'm Dr. Rue Friday. How can I help? You made Tibble ease pain. How can I do that too?
You have, and you will again.
I don't understand, unfortunately.
Many don't.
My previous training that I remember on Acheron, when many birds fell like this.
It's okay, little bird. The choice is not ours. It is his. For now, he dreams.
The roommates get very low musical sound from behind their mask, but they bow their heads slightly and continue looking at Tibble.
Alton, you have seen injuries like this?
Yes, a few times.
I will have a cot put in the captain quarters. You want to monitor him?
Yes, of course. I can keep an eye on his healing after I've checked on everyone else.
Little bird,
Yes.
can you take young Miss Kara? Make her some tea. She needs rest.
Oh, of course. Ms. Kara, if you would like to come with myself and Ham, I have a lot of teas I've been wanting to show many of the people on the ship, and I think you will be the best taste tester for my favorite blend.
Kara, she stands up and she turns to you, and her face is kind of blank. It looks like she's still processing. But then she looks just past you, and you see something pass over her face. And then she sprints past you. You would all see as this tiny, fluffy cat person runs and leaps and just clutches to Janus. And she's crying, a gentle sobbing. Janus, you can feel her clutching to you, so impossibly tight.
Janus is caught completely off guard, and so he gets tackled by Kara. If she's tackling him, she wouldn't see his face, but his face goes across a very rapid shift of watchful guardedness, genuine alarm, and anger and anguish. And he carefully puts one arm around her. And, Kara, I am so sorry.
She looks up at you and she's shaking her head. So I suppose Neris was standing there too, yeah? With Janus still.
Neris is. For reference, as Kara did start sprinting up to the helm, Neris did steel himself and not raise his wand, but ready it just in case anything happens.
Well, Neris, you would completely understand, and Janus, you would get bits and pieces. And maybe there's a little bit of relief after what you saw that she is signing this. But you see her sign to Janus. It's nice to see the reflection of warmth on the waves again. And Janus, you would recognize that as your sign name that she gave you years ago.
Janus does, almost like he's not even aware of it. Tears do start to run down his face, but he just clasps that arm tightly around her.
After a moment, she unwinds and she walks back to where Rue is and takes Rue's long, spindly hand. But she does look back at Janus with a wet and sad but genuine small smile.
Janus nods at her, and then his eyes slide to the side beyond her shoulder and beyond Rue's shoulder, and then he just seems to, almost by force, make himself look back out towards where the sun is setting currently. And then Rue nods at Kara's like, "Please come with me. We will take good care of you, and we will make sure everything is all right. Come along, Ham." And he stops as he passes out. "I thank you very much for assisting Ham. Ham is my only friend and my best friend, so I am very, very glad for you to have seen past our disagreements to look after him."
I mean, he was the only person I could reach.
Oh, of course. Have a good day then.
And Rue continues to lead Kara very gently for someone who's 7 feet tall and not of this earth, perhaps. And very gently leads her down to his quarters, I guess, at the moment.
I think Alton probably just healing people nearby. A fishman arrived with Kara and everyone, so he probably would have quickly gone over Fishman's injuries. So that's 16 points of healing to him.
Sia would also be going around and healing anyone who needs to be healed now that she is on deck. But she is very floaty and doesn't really answer any questions if people ask her for specific instructions past what she is given.
So yeah, I don't know if he'd flag down Neris to come over, but he'd go to Neris. Alright, so Captain's doing badly. He should probably live. we're gonna have to keep him under observation for a very long time. Are you doing well?
I have not taken the time to check. I do not believe we have that time at the moment.
Yes, no, things are rather dire right now. So did I give you a heads up about his condition? Oh, and, Janus, good to see you again. Did you think that we were the more powerful of the two groups? Is that why you stayed?
No, as I know you're not.
But there's work to be done. Stop by Seer if you need a bit of help. And he will return to Tibble or to anyone else who will go to him for assistance.
Neris will, as Alden is leaving, just... You're doing good work. Yourself and Drew are taking charge. Well done. I will continue to... and Neris kind of stretches a little bit and notices that his stomach is actively bleeding. I will take inventory and manage the crew for the time being.
Actually, do want to slap a bandage on that. I heard a bit of a yell from you before. Doing the good work now isn't much use when I let people get hurt in the first place.
Neris is actually going to stop you. Neris is going to put out a hand. I am able to manage. We are both needed elsewhere. We will reconvene later. This can wait.
Of course. Don't let that wound get infected, though. Remember, your mother's teachings? Gotta keep an eye on that. Right, and he'll go back to attending to Tibble.
Neris is going to send a bunch of messages to various members of the crew and essentially just start directing traffic, ensuring that we have a couple of people running supplies to whatever the three medics need. He's going to get probably the new junior bosun. Yes, so he'll get probably Tim and potentially Florette as well, who's the junior master at arms.
Who would be looking especially just like shaken by everything that has happened, considering
Yes.
her mentor is back.
Exactly. So we need to give them a job to get their mind off everything that's happening. So Neris is going to get them to take inventory of everything that we have. The Sin Seekers came here for a reason. We want to see what that was. We're not sure if it is just Tibble, so we count everything. He's also sending a message to Opak, who is the Neris's 2IC, and telling her her only job at the moment is to inspect every single member of the crew and see what's happening, see how they're feeling, see what they're thinking, what they're talking about. And I want all of that information funneled back to Neris. And then Neris is going to turn back to Janus and is just going to wait and see what happens.
I will say Cerise will flag a healer down for Loren and will make sure that they do not say a word whilst they heal her.
Who do we think?
Probably Saya, because she knows that Alton and Loren have history.
Eddie, can I get you to roll me on his behalf? Just a medicine check.
Sure. I'll give you the dice roll. You tell me the modifier. That's a 13 on the dice.
So, Thea notices that there is something strange in one of the wounds, in the claw wound from 𝗧. They're almost imperceivable, but resembling tadpole eggs.
She approaches as she's flagged over. Your face different?
If you want to keep talking in that fluty little voice, you won't say fucking anything about my face.
I was talking to the pretty one.
We're just visiting.
This one has been tainted. May I?
Loren is too shocked to give a response, but she doesn't stop you.
So she presses a hand down sort of forcefully to make sure you don't move. And she gets almost like a scalpel tool. You would see her scrape something dark from Loren's, where it was it like across her ribs, across her chest?
The dagger mark was her right side. I imagine the claw mark was even like across her stomach. And she just didn't notice because the fabric would have covered it.
Yeah, so she's kind of pressing just above where the wound would be. And with the other hand, Cerise, you would see her do this one-handed, is like scrape with a scalpel into this jar and then tuck the jar into her sleeve. And then this light, shining, magical energy fries out all of the other visible eggs. And the wound magically cauterizes. And she leans in uncomfortably close to your face and she brings the jar back up and holds it in front of you. Tainted.
Well, thank goodness you're competent then.
I am many things, as are you. And she cups your cheek very gently.
Loren slaps her hand away. I don't get touched without me permission.
Was there more?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
And she takes a step back, pockets this little jar again and moves on.
Loren looks to Cerise. She is still covered in blood. You know, we could have just waited until we got back to Stabbins. They would have done just as good a job, and I wouldn't have had to deal with that.
I think whatever it was that was just scraped out of you was probably better off being taken out now rather than later.
I'm tired, Captain. What are we doing? We had a plan. I fucked it up.
Not at all.
I don't mean her. I mean, she tilts her head towards Janus.
Things happen. Sometimes for better or worse. Cannot control everything.
Well, I know that. I'm sorry. Feeling pretty useless at the moment. I've gotten blood on your coat.
You think that's the first blood that's gotten on that coat?
Oh, I know it's not, Captain, but it's never been mine.
There was that one bar fight.
Well, that was when we met. That was different.
Your nose bled all down everything.
Captain, it was hot out. And I did get hit in the face with that bottle, so, you know, frankly, it's amazing I didn't lose a tooth.
I do think we've outstayed our welcome.
We outstayed our welcome as soon as we got here. I want to see if I can speak to him again. Not to... I don't think he's leaving them. I don't know.
I feel like it's not likely he'll stay either. Probably best he heads home to his wife.
Do you think we'll hear... No. They have no reason to tell us anything about Clover.
We'll find out.
Aye. We always find out.
Cerise just...
Feck! Have you seen my headband? I did... Feck! Feck it! And she, like, pulls her hair over her ears.
Cerise goes to find the headband.
When Cerise finds it, she just ties it back up. And it just looks very... She looks very pathetic. She looks very sad. You remember the last time she looked like this, and it has been 10 long years since then.
I'll be waiting for you. And Cerise just sort of wanders off to some edge of the ship and sits on the railing.
She kind of steels herself. And she kind of just sits there watching Janus and Neris for a bit, lost in their own world as they have this period of knowing what needs to be done and not knowing how to interact with one another anymore. And she waits to see if Neris is going to leave. And she waits, and he doesn't. And eventually she kind of sighs. She looks heavenward. And she looks at her mother's wedding ring that she has put on her finger. And she gets up and she goes over to Janus and Neris. And just completely cutting the tension, she just claps Janus on the shoulder. Good to see you, laddie.
Hello again.
Hello again. I see you've made a professional decision here. Or have you?
You should know me. I exist on spur of the moment entirely. How beautiful it is to reach for the sun at the verge of the horizon. And here I am for now. But he looks between Neris and Laura and he's like, did you speak? I may be tracked, is the only problem. And if they do get me back, they will kill me. Or worse, they need me for something after all, so... One of the 7?
At the moment, one of the 6. I spoke to Neris. He knows what needs to be done. Out of curiosity, did they tell you which one you were?
A lot of emotions go across his face. Discomfort and anger. Again, this very careful flicker of schooled blankness. And then his mouth curls up and then his eyes match it. You can't tell whether it's genuine or not. And he goes, you fought me, you should know. I've always been full of wrath.
Just thought it might do you some good to say it. They say it helps in the healing process.
Healing. And there's some similarity in both Loren and Janus being very big personalities who have had some of the wind knocked out of their sails. We'll see, I suppose. Much has occurred here. These have not been good tidings or a good return.
No, but it is still a return.
He just looks at Neris. We shall see, I suppose. Much has occurred. And he sort of like half turns and then claps his hand on the same shoulder that he bit over 2 weeks ago.
As she jostles, he would see his own tooth hanging from her hair.
What? I thank you. No one came for me, but I am here regardless. So I appreciate your attempt. And we shall see what the new horizon brings. But I thank you, Stormbringer.
She looks at Neris. She looks back at Janus. They may not have come for you, but some of them tried. I do hope you heal, Stormbreaker. You're the only one on this ship worth my time in a fight. I'll see you later, sunset on the water. I'll find you where the sky meets the sea. But if you ever need to find me specifically, and a little business card appears. And she tucks it into Janus's breastplate. And then she looks at Neris. Neris! Thanks for the save back there. I owe you one. Take better care of your plants.
I don't want you to owe me one, please. Can we just say we're even and we don't have to interact again?
Nah. I think I'll be back. See you later, Solilanti, Stormbreaker. And give our regards to your captain. I've said some bad things about him the past 24 hours, but he is a good man. And she looks at Neris again. He is a friend. She looks at Janus. And he'll need good people to look after him.
Of course.
He has them.
I'll catch you later.
Sky meets the sea. You're a better woman than... Woman? You're a
I'm
better...
working on it.
Oh, okay. You're a better person than... Gooder than you think. Oh no, I've mixed it up now.
You're good too, Janus. It'll do you well to remember that. Especially right now.
He doesn't say anything.
She salutes, and she goes to find Cerise.
Cerise had wandered off to sit on one of the railings, perhaps waiting for someone to come find her.
Perhaps they do come. As Fishman approaches, he will say, Captain Thunderbolt, unscathed and, by the looks of it, quite competent in this past combat. It's impressive.
One doesn't get far in my business without being at least somewhat competent.
I need to ask you something. You mentioned you were after something. Have you found it?
I'm not sure yet.
Perhaps I'm misinterpreting, but I did overhear Loren. Was it Janus?
You're quite clever.
And then maybe he had some kind of happy demeanor, but now it's not. Did you know?
No,
If you
what?
show up here, now, just before this happens, and the very thing you look for is someone who teleported aboard our vessel. Did you know?
No. An accident.
That is quite the coincidence. I believe, and I am sorry for suspecting, but I believe one of the best places for Janus is either aboard this vessel or home with their family.
After everything that's happened today, I'm inclined to agree with you.
I'm glad we see eye to eye. The question was burning, and I just needed to double check. I feel like an apology is due yet again. I have often said that you have this facade, but it seems that it is not a facade. I see that you are you, and what you do is actually what you do. I apologize.
I accept your apology.
So what is your plan, Captain Thunderbolt? You do not wish to stay?
No, I cannot stay. We have other things on the horizon for us.
Should we expect another boarding party?
Never say never. Things do get boring every now and then, you know.
As long as you are ready for it to end up the same as last. By all means.
I look forward to it.
And Fishman will probably kind of just sit down because there's really not much he can do other than maybe help Neris out. I don't think his role is absolutely necessary currently, so yeah, he might just chill out with Cerise. Not until you get picked up, per se, or teleport with your fancy thunder, lightning, whatever that was. Mind keeping me company? A fair bit has happened.
Of course not. I am sorry about your captain.
It is incredibly unfortunate. They are a great man, and whilst they will recover, this ship may not be the same.
Things never are after this.
The best we can hope for is that this doesn't happen again. Thank you for your help. You did not have to, but you did.
You're welcome. I suppose they just sit there in companionable silence until Cerise and Loren get picked up.
Or anyone dares approach.
Or that.
So Neris is going to send off all of his messages, followed immediately by shooting daggers at Loren for an entire conversation. And then there is a tiny little bit of emotion that isn't just like muted anger. It's more of like confusion and annoyance when Loren casts a particular spell and summons a business card. And Neris looks at this not only for the sheer bullshit that motion entails, but also just like he can't do that spell and that hurts him. That's just annoying. It's such a stupid spell, and it wouldn't help in any situation. God, he wants it. And he tries very hard to not let that play across his face, but it does linger for a little bit too long, and Neris will remain quiet for a period of time.
I was going to say Janus is going to insight check Neris, but I suppose unless he does terribly, he will see those expressions just happen. So he's just kind of like watching Neris after like Loren's left and that tension has kind of settled back in again. He readjusts his grip on his weapon a little bit and then redoes it and then just lets his glaives clash to the floor and then folds his arms, but not like in a very standoffish way, and then turns to look at Neris. So,
I did not expect today to happen.
I didn't expect today to happen, if you can believe it.
I have something of yours. Technically it's still yours, but I requisitioned it when you left. I believe it would be better if it was returned to you, if you would not mind joining me quickly. No one else is up in this back area, so people know that Janus and Neris are up there. No one can see them at the moment. Neris is going to look at Janus. Would you mind accompanying me?
Of course. There's a bit of that sliding of that guarding of look over his eyes, but he just nods. Lead the way, quartermaster.
I don't have to. And Neris is going to reach out slowly and deliberately, and is going to attempt to place a hand on Janus's shoulder.
He actively flinches, but then either by will or automatically relaxes. He does not look like he would resist.
Neris will pause his hand. Not retract it, but pause it.
Sorry, habit.
Understandable. Concerning, and something we should discuss later.
We'll see.
Yes, we shall. I wish to have a private conversation. I feel it would be better for both of us if it was completely private.
Yes?
And Neris will reach out, touch Janus's shoulder, and if Janus is willing, the two of us will disappear and reappear in Neris's chambers.
When you reappear, he is again flinching, and then he opens his eyes with sort of a naive kind of shock that again goes back into that amicably guarded kind of expression. Teleportation. Did you always have this?
There's been lots that has changed in the last 2 weeks. And Neris will go over to his desk and just start rifling through drawers. So, after you were taken, I took it upon myself to try and find out if there were any clues left in your possessions. I would very much like to say, and Neris is still rifling through the stuff on his desk, almost as if he doesn't know where every single piece of information is stored on his desk at all times. He's sort of being not aloof, more amicable, but is choosing his words very carefully. I do want to stress that, well, I'm sure you're aware, I am skilled with learning new information. I do tend to keep a lot of it to myself, unless it becomes important to reveal. So while our Captain Clover was present during the investigation, a lot of the information is mine and mine alone, and will toss Janus's diary back to him.
Janus almost drops it, but catches it and just clutches that close to his chest almost instinctively. I'm sure you gleaned a lot of information then, at least in matters of the affairs of the past. What did you think of the things you found?
I was only interested in that which would lead me to you.
Truly?
Everybody has secrets. Sometimes they become relevant, and sometimes they can remain secrets. And if they are of no danger to those around you, there's no harm in them.
Janus looks like he's searching Neris's eyes for something. And then either he seems to find something or he comes to a conclusion, and his mouth spreads into a genuine sharp-toothed grin. I appreciate it, Quartermaster. Neris. He then slides his gaze down a bit. May I? He stretches out one hand, and you can feel the warmth from that, even from however far you are across the room.
Neris will tense more than he is normally, but will no resist.
Feels like his stomach that's being stabbed out. Where is he bleeding from?
I'm assuming it's just below the lower rib on the right-hand side. It's not in a good spot. If Neris ever did a crunch, it'd hurt.
That's normal anyway, but yeah. I'm sure Alton can look over your wounds, but here. And he reaches his hand out and he's going to cast the innate cure wounds that he has. That's an 18, I rolled 2 8s. You can see the light from Janus's eyes dim slightly as that warmth flows through his hand and out through into you. And then he lets that linger there for a moment. And then he nods at Neris. I have missed everyone here, and I do appreciate your work.
Everyone has missed you too.
It remains to be seen if I'm worth regaining their trust. It has been a long time after all. There's a lot to relearn.
That is... well, you have time. And you can do with that as you wish.
We all have time. And he will lean in and press his forehead briefly against Neris's, and then he will leave.
As Janus leaves the room, on saying we all have time, there is this troubled look that is mostly hidden until Janus turns his back, and then Neris's brow just furrows as he remembers himself in a desert of sand, that whirlpool slowly turning, draining all of that sand, and his own self, his older self, telling him that he failed and he's running out of time. As Neris thinks on this, his hand unclenches from the tension and a thin, probably not quite rotting, but dying loop of vines falls out from his hand onto the ground.
So, before we leave for the night, Cerise and Loren, your stint with the Polaris has come to an end. This period of tormenting them and fighting alongside them.
It's been a hell of a visit.
I'm sure we'll meet again.
Fishman looks like he's starting to take a warming to you as we walk away.
Cerise does sort of look back, blow a kiss, and wink at Fishman, and then turns around and keeps going as they board their ship.
Yeah.
And the Wren might look back and see Janus standing away from most of the crew on the deck, and then she might look and a bolt of lightning sort of flashes just across the prow of the Red Phoenix's ship as she boards.
And as she looks back at Janus, she holds up a hand in a wave and turns it slightly. He would feel the wind curve around him in that same direction. An acknowledgement and a connection. And in her captain's coach, she walks aboard her ship.
There's the two ships part in two different directions. That's where we're going to leave it for this week.
Let us know
Bye-bye.
what you think. Will Tibble make it through? I hope so. We'll see.
Tweet us. Yes or no, Tibble?
Place your
Bye.
bets.
Bye.
I want to die.
I love playing D&D with you guys. Did you know that?
Evaporate.
Oh
Why are you all so good at D&D? Fuck this.